What's up, y'all? This is Mike Manzer here with another Manzerfaust Productions video. Today I'm going to do a video on the ranking the obscure. Yeah, I think that's the name. Ranking the Obscure made a contest video about kind of a mixtape, like a fictional mixtape about like kind of introducing yourself to someone, what you would put on that mixtape. It's about and we're doing side A, so 30 minutes. Usually my mixtapes are more like 45 per side, but he asked for 30 minutes, and I do what I'm told. I also along with this playlist, it's on Spotify, I put his original video and a link to his channel so you can go and check his stuff out. I just found him, thought it was some really cool stuff. And I also included in the description a link to the video that exposed this contest to me by Low Noise Jason Skilz, and that's another great channel for you to go check out and subscribe to. Support motherfuckers showing great music on YouTube. So let's get into it. So I went into this kind of like a bunch of different categories and genres and parts of my life, and I really wanted to go into like what has made the biggest impact on my life musically. What are some of these records that I've played like so much throughout my life? And I could go really deep with this. It's in 30 minutes. I got this down to about 30 minutes and 32 seconds. So this would definitely fit on that side. If, maybe lose a couple of seconds. But I wanted to go with like the creme de la creme. And, some of them I had to pick some shorter tracks. I listen to a lot of like prog and like jazz and a lot of that kind of stuff where the songs are quite long. And that would take up pretty much this whole fucking tape. So I went with sort of shorter tracks, and I'll talk about that when we get into it. But I wanted to start off with one of the best album openers ever, and it was also one of the first records that really got me into like fast punk rock and all this kind of stuff. Like I was like 7 or 8 when I first heard this shit, and that is Smash by the Offspring. And growing up in the 90s, you would hear this constantly. This is a repress. I got this like last year at Static Era. Shout out Static Era once again. Cool little insert with all the different lyrics and images. And yeah, so I went with Nitro, Youth Energy, which is pretty much the first track. There's a little intro with like a goofy, like kind of time to relax kind of thing, which is kind of cool, but it kicks right in, has a great like opening drum little fill, it just kicks right in. And I really love the early Offspring stuff because they didn't start putting his voice, Dexter Holland's voice, like way up in the mix, which really annoys me on the later records. I can get into Ixnay on the Hombre, which was immediately after this, and that was the first one I really heard, because Gone Away was fucking everywhere on the radio. That was a really big song. I Choose, I think, was pretty big. All I Want was on fucking Crazy Taxi. You were hearing these songs, but I really didn't like anything past that. I don't like Americana. I really think it's kind of a weak album. Got an excellent opener. Like, the Offspring always had the best songs as their opener. Session on Ignition, which is probably my favorite record of theirs. And they open Americana with Have You Ever, and that's such a ripper song, and then just fucking nosedives for the rest of the album, in my opinion. I don't like that album. I think it's a lot of rehashes of their older material. Like, She's Got Issues is pretty much like a fucking re-recording of Self-Esteem off of this album. But yeah, that's a video for another time. So I went with Nitro, Youth Energy. It's such a classic fucking song. And we got that at 2 minutes and 27 seconds. So, up next, wanted to go with some hardcore. It's a big part of my personality. And I wanted to go with something early, too. That was kind of influential and like formative for me. Minor Threat, Out of Step, and I went with the first track, Betray. Clocking in at 3 minutes. We're getting kind of long, and that's surprising with a band like Minor Threat. And I love this shit. You know, I've talked about it a few times on this channel. It's just amazing, like early hardcore from DC. You know, Minor Threat. You know how that shit sounds. It's a rager, and that song has a great like little mid-pace breakdown part, bridge, whatever you want to call it. That's just, it's one of the best hardcore songs ever recorded, in my opinion, so I wanted to throw that on. So number 3, gonna slow it down for a little bit. You know, I like to go up and down, like kind of like a roller coaster effect with a lot of the mixtapes I make. And so I wanted to throw on some hip-hop because it's a huge part of my life. You know, from a young age, even before I discovered punk rock and a lot of metal kind of stuff, I was listening to a ton of hip-hop, you know, and it was all over the place. Fugees, The Score, The Chronic by Dr. Dre, Doggy Style, early Coolio stuff, DMX later on, Ludacris's early stuff even. Like, these are all, like, tracks, singles, and albums that were, like, really formative for me. Finding music and like soul music and funk music, reggae, all this stuff came out of like me obsessing over these samples. Like, where did they get this music from? Where is this coming from? And, you know, this came later on in my life when I was starting to get back into it and stuff, but this is one of the greatest albums of all time. I have my 2 favorite, like, hip-hop albums of all time. This is number 2, and yeah, Madvillain, Madvillainy. This is a collaboration between MF Doom and Madlib, and the track I picked is this kind of opening track as well, called Accordion. Real quick, it's only about like exactly 2 minutes, and it just shows what this album is. It's got a great production done by Madlib, you know, the sample heavy kind of accordion sound, and just MF Doom's flow is like one of the best in the game. You know, it's the same flow throughout his career. He kind of tweaks it a little bit, but man, like, you want instantly like definable song for his career. Accordion and another track up here called All Caps definitely will show you what MF Doom and even like Madlib production-wise are all about. So yeah, you know, get some good ass hip hop on there. And like I said, spoiler alert, there's more coming. So number 4, wanted to go with a metal album. I don't have a lot of metal on here, which is weird because it's been such a big part of my life the past bunch of years. But went with utter classic and one of my favorite albums of all time. Could have gone with Don't Break the Oath, but I just showed that, and I've shown this one, but we got Venom, black metal from 1982, classic album, and I went with track number 3, Buried Alive. Not Buried Alive. Oh wait, no, I'm wrong. I'm fucking up. Track number 4, Raise the Dead, because it's got that real, like, kind of Motorhead style, like, thrash element to it, and it's just a rager and just, like, unhinged and great sing-along and stuff like that. You know, it's just an iconic Venom track. So for number 5, I went with a really short one, and this is kind of a good, like, transition song, because it goes super fast. It's probably the fastest one on this side. Yeah, so it's a quick song, and then it goes more into like the mellow stuff after this. And I went with Spazz, Crush Kill Destroy. The track is I can't remember what number it is, but it is Sword of the Lord. Got a cool little Mr. Burns from The Simpsons sample on it. It just kicks in. It's got a little bit of that religious aspect to it that I always like in my music, you know, the kind of almost blasphemous style of stuff. So really dig that. And now we're getting a little bit more laid back. And I wanted to pick a King Crimson song, but damn, their stuff is long as shit. This is the only song I could find that was pretty short, and it's probably off my favorite album by King Crimson. It goes between this and Court, but that's Lark's Tongue and Aspic from 1973. The track I went with is track number 2 on side A, Book of Saturday, and it's a beautiful melody. It's just a very kind of, it's more of a kind of a centerpiece for Greg Lake, the vocalist, and it's just like just a gorgeous melody, and it's very condensed down compared to, like, you know, their usual sprawling epics. And King Crimson is one of, like, my all-time favorite bands. I've seen them twice. They put on such an amazing show, and yeah, so like I wanted to represent them. And to follow that up, I went with another one of my favorite musicians, and kind of went a little bit obscure on this, but I wanted to showcase his guitar playing. I love this man soloing and kind of like the more jazzy instrumental kind of you know, pieces that he does. So I went with Zappa, Zoot, Allures, and the track is Black Napkins at about 4 minutes and 16 seconds. So this is like the longest track on here, and it's just a great solo, probably my favorite studio produced like soloing, like kind of spotlight track. And it's a great album, you know. It goes kind of up and down and stuff. I really like The Torture Never Stops. It's kind of a sadomasochism kind of song, with the usual Zappa tongue-in-cheek humor. But Black Napkins, man, just has such a beautiful melody with the backing singers, ooh, like that kind of stuff. It's really fucking cool. And the solo just goes so many different directions. It's got a really, really like fast, thrashy kind of like kind of part like at the 1 minute mark, I think, and it's just the construction of the solo is just top tier. And then to kind of go back on the up of the roller coaster, if it were, my number 8 is The Doors with Backdoor Man. Off of their self-titled record. It is the opening track on side B. And I love this band. I love The Doors. You know, I kind of don't give a fuck about Jim Morrison. Really, this band to me is Robbie Krieger and Ray Manzarek. I was lucky enough to see them at the casino one time, like randomly, and it was amazing. I believe they had Ian Ashbury from the Cult singing vocals, which totally fits. He's got that real, like, bombastic Jim Morrison delivery to it, and it was just amazing. And I love Backdoor Man. It's just a fucking typical, like, the Doors early, like, kind of blues burner of a song, very, like, Muddy Waters influence, or even like Willie Dixon and stuff. It's just a burner. I love doing that song if I ever do it at karaoke. It's just a great, like, anthemic, you know, dark, brooding, sexual song from them. And that album is stacked with good shit. And I love pretty much their entire career. I'm not really big on their, like, Minus Jim record. My favorite is personally LA Woman, because I love that kind of snarl and like kind of depravity that album kind of has bubbling on it. And but yeah, you know, Backdoor Man, one of the best fucking songs. That's like 67 too, so it's that kind of early gothic, like darkness kind of representation for me. And then to even go full on, this is the top of the heap, and then going back down, speeding around. We got Arthur Brown, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. And the track I went with is the intro to the first side, Prelude and Nightmare. And yeah, this is some good shit. I love Arthur Brown, just the high vocals, wah! Kind of thing. Just, and extremely, he had Cole Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer and a couple of other groups playing drums, and it's just insane. He's got this kind of swing, kind of, you know, it's not the bossa nova beat that you would get with like the Doors and stuff. It's more of just like a, I don't really know how to describe it because I'm not a drummer, but it's a real good like driving drum beat, and the keyboards are going fucking ape shit, and like Arthur Brown, just one of the greatest screamers in music history, and this album is just one of the best early kind of proto-progressive, some shock rock elements, and you got a real like bluesy, like crooner style, almost like a more kind of hinged, like Screamin' Jay Hawkins kind of vibe. He even covers I Put a Spell on You, and it's just, this is one of the best albums ever made. So had to throw that on there. Now we're getting back into hip hop, just to kind of give like a kind of little bit of a calm before like the ending kind of explosion. So I went with my favorite hip hop album of all time, Enter the 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang Clan, and I went with Shame, track 2. I'm not going to say that whole title, you know what it is. And this is great. It's a good spotlight on the album for Old Dirty Bastard, who became kind of like a big part of the group, R.I.P. And, you know, it's just a good groove, you know, some real great, like, lyricism from ODB, who really wasn't known for a lot of his lyricism later on. You know, his, like, solo albums are kind of goofy for the most part, but it's just, it's iconic. That whole album is just like one banger after another, and it really defines like that 90s hip-hop that I just adore. Very important. I wanted to end it with kind of like another youthful aggression, kind of punch to the face style song, because I started off with like The Offspring, real like fast track. Even for them, it's like probably their most like aggressive track. You know, that's probably their more aggressive album. It's got some other good stuff on it. So I went with an album that has really been a huge part of the last few years, especially during the pandemic, and that is AFI's Black Sails in the Sunset. And I went with track 2 off of side B, No Poetic Device. And I really like this track because it's got a real like, it's got like that fierce, like kind of like fast song kind of vibe. It's got a dun 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 dun, and just kicks the fuck in. And you know, it's in and out. It's a pretty quick song. It's only like 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So it's a good like ending kind of track to the side. And yeah, so you know, that's what it is. It's like, this is kind of the most condensed version I could do of like my big influences and the music that has kind of formed me. You know, I could have put so much more on here. So much like new wave and jazz and weird like kind of avant-garde stuff like Captain Beefheart or the Monks or you know, all this kind of stuff, Jesus and Mary Chain, the Pixies, all this just ranges of stuff. But this I really am happy with, just kind of giving a overview of how I, you know, would make a mixtape. And I am probably going to do a mixtape on cassette, on a C60 cassette of this. And because I love doing it, I, you know, have a DJ set up in my apartment. And yeah, so this is a good opportunity. And I really like recommend you guys go out and watch the video, you know, get all the rules and stuff, subscribe to Ranking the Obscure's YouTube channel because it's got some solid stuff. I need to dive a little bit deeper into it, but I really like what he's doing. And make your own video, you know, talk about these records and talk about not these records, but whatever records have formed your music influence and your life in music. And, yeah, tell us a little bit about you. So, yeah, my name is Mike Manzer. You can find me on Instagram at the Hordes of Manzerfaust. And this is another Manzerfaust Productions video. Stay fucking metal.